You're listening to the Touchdown Under podcast with Jack, Emilian, Anthony, and Ruth.
Hello everybody and welcome back to the Touchdown Under podcast. I'm Jack, your host, and as always I'm joined by Emilian.
Hey, how's it going?
Anthony.
Good to be here.
And Arif.
Happy to be back.
Today is episode 30 of the podcast and we're recapping week 15 of the NFL season, and atop the agenda today is the Steelers, another disappointing performance for the third week in a row. They lost reasonably convincingly against the Cincinnati Bengals, who started Ryan Finley at quarterback. So another very disappointing outing. Anthony, why don't you head off the discussion about the Steelers, because I know you love talking about them.
You've been mentioning the last couple of weeks, especially since they've been losing those games. The last couple of weeks. But the one against Cincinnati last night was disappointing. I really thought that the Steelers would have really they would close out the season, win those division games, the really important ones, and then to lose to Cincinnati in the situation they were in, it's surprising. It is surprising. We knew the Steelers weren't in the best form, but it is surprising to lose to Cincinnati the way they did. It was shocking.
Yeah, and it's funny to think about a few weeks ago before they lost to Washington. We were talking about how the Steelers would be the number 1 or 2 seed. Right now, they're currently the 3 seed, and they could even end up losing the division because the Browns are right on their tail. They face them in week 17. They really do have to win these last 2 games. It is absolutely crucial. And honestly, I don't even know if they'll win both.
Yeah, exactly.
Another hot topic this week in the NFL was the Oakland Raiders, who dropped another game. This time it was against the LA Chargers at home in overtime. Justin Herbert scored the game-winning touchdown on a QB sneak, and we talked about the Raiders' inconsistency and how it might trouble them leading into the playoffs, and now it looks like they're almost a certainty to not make the playoffs. And it has ended another disappointing season for the Raiders because they had such high hopes going in, and they were playing really well for a good portion of the season, and now it looks like another wasted season, Emilian.
Yeah, their biggest need going into next season is really the defense. They need to fix that defense up. Obviously, last game against the Chargers, they had quite a few key players out. That's still not an excuse. They still should have been able to hold the Chargers off and not even go to overtime. They should have just been able to win in regulation. That being said, credit to Marcus Mariota. He played an absolutely phenomenal game, stepping in when Derek Carr got injured. I believe he played really well throughout the game up until that one interception he threw where he threw it behind Zay Jones. That pretty much sealed the game for me. I thought there was no way the Raiders were going to win after that pick, but Raiders, they're done for this season. On to next year. I really do think they can make a push for the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they really have to fix their issue with their pass rush. Yeah. It's been a number of years that they've been 30th or lower in sacks, totals, pressures, all that kind of stuff. They need to fix that up. Unfortunately, their techniques in free agency didn't work as well as it did with teams like the Dolphins, where they got a lot of personnel, but it didn't seem to pay off as it did in Miami.
That's a good point, Arif. Raiders fans love to run their mouths about how they won the trade against the Bears in that Khalil Mack trade, and while they may have got a nice player in Josh Jacobs, they really have not had anywhere near the same level of pass rush as they had with Khalil Mack, and it's been a recurring theme, as you guys mentioned, and the defense has obviously suffered as a result. They do need obvious help there at that position, and I think until they do, they're going to be stuck around this kind of area where they can score points, but they also give up way too many to the point where they can't they're consistently not making the playoffs, and they really should have this season, and that they probably won't now. So that's where they're at. Really disappointing for them. Anything else you guys want to add?
Not really, not too much.
Alright, on to the power rankings for this week, and at number 32, we have a new number 32, and it is the Jacksonville Jaguars, because the New York Jets finally won a game. They moved up to number 31. They got a really unexpected win over the Rams in LA. The Jets played pretty well. Obviously, we thought they should have got their first win against the Raiders a few weeks back, but they finally have one now on the board, and in doing so, they've worsened their chances at drafting Trevor Lawrence. So, really, it's just another loss for the Jets. At number 30, the Lions. The Falcons are at number 29. The Bengals are up to 28 after that unexpected win. It was a pretty good performance from Ryan Finley, I thought, and especially Giovanni Bernard, who I think scored 2 touchdowns on the night. They really were able to dismantle that Pittsburgh defense for most of the night.
Yeah, it was a good performance by him. I think the Steelers defense they haven't really contained any a lot of quarterbacks getting over the top of them. We got Josh Allen did it last week. That defense was where the hold up against, both sides of the ball was really weak for Pittsburgh right now. And yeah, credit to, those players you mentioned before, Giovanni Bernard and Ryan Finley. They did really well. They took out where the weak spots in that Pittsburgh defense was, and they really, took the game away from them. It was a good performance, 4 quarters.
I just want to say, I think the Bengals' game plan was really smart. They didn't put the ball in Ryan Finley's hands too much. I think he only attempted 13 passes on the night. I thought that was really smart. I feel like as the game wore on and the Steelers were coming closer and closer, because remember, it was 17 or at halftime, I feel like if they started to give Ryan Finley the ball even more, they would have been in some trouble. So I think they played it well.
It's a good point because there was a really nicely designed play from Zach Taylor where Finley scored that rushing touchdown where they had that fake handoff and then he just pretty much had a free road to the end zone. So it was a good offensive coaching performance as well, and that did contribute. At number 27 of the Broncos, the Panthers are at 26, the Cowboys at 25, the 49ers dropped down to number 24 after their loss against the Cowboys. The Chargers, who won, are up to number 23, the Patriots are at 22, the Texans are at 21, the Eagles are at 20, the Giants are number 19, as we talked about just before. The Raiders are at number 18 now on our rankings. They've consistently been dropping for weeks now. At 17, the Vikings, and at 16, the Bears move up, and all of a sudden the Bears are in playoff contention once again after they lost 6 games in a row. They've won their last 2. They are attempting to become the second team in playoff history to lose 6 games in a row in a season and still make the playoffs. The only other team to do that was the Panthers in 2014. But the Bears have a reasonably favourable run. They have Jacksonville Jaguars away next week, and then a Packers team at home in week 17 who, if they have the number 1 seed locked up, won't have anything to be playing for, so they might be resting starters. The Bears could be in the playoff mix if the Cardinals lose just one of the next 2 games.
Yeah, well, I think this week the Cardinals, they play the Niners, right? I think they win this game. I think that they're really set. And then if they play the Rams in week 17, if they're playing that game to hold on to that number 7 spot, they're going to come out guns blazing. They're going to want to win that. That is going to be an absolute fire of a match because both teams will have something to play for at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And for the 49ers, their season's basically beyond them at this point. It's been, this week's game against Dallas kind of confirmed that. Just terrible, terrible production on the offense. The defense couldn't handle Dallas. They're not built for the playoffs right now. They just need to, just go into the preseason. Just get personnel
healthy.
Personnel back, and they'll be set for 2021.
Well, we've known for a while that we're going to playoffs this season, but I think they take a lot of joy in ruining the Cardinals season. So, and the other thing is they have been based in Arizona for a few weeks now, so they are at least somewhat accustomed to that stadium. So, I mean, for Bears fans like myself, we'd be hoping that the 49ers can cause an upset. They did sign Josh Rosen off the Tampa Bay Buccaneers practice squad today, so there's a chance he could be starting for the 49ers this week. At 15, we have Washington. At 14, the Dolphins. The aforementioned Cardinals are at number 13. The Rams are down to 12 after that shocking, disappointing loss against the Jets. The Rams come up against the Seahawks next week in what will likely determine who wins the title of that division. If the Rams drop that game, then they are not going to be winning the division. After they looked like they're in the box, if a little bit of a time there.
Yeah, absolutely. This is honestly going to be a battle inside and out. Obviously, they're in Seattle, so the Seahawks have a little bit of an edge there, but we know that Pete Carroll has struggled against the Rams in Sean McVay's tenure there since 2017. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this all pans out next week.
It's interesting to see how over the course of the season, between the Rams and Seahawks, kind of flip between who's going to win that division. It looked like the Seahawks were going to easily run away with that division early in the season, and they went, that great start to the season. But now it looks like it's quite 50-50. Even though the Rams lost to the Jets last week, and in my opinion, that put the drop in the power rankings, it's well deserved for losing again to a team that hasn't won all season. So I think going to this game, it's dead 50-50. I'm really interested to see who wins. I can't tell who will win.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. I mean, Seahawks lost to the Giants a couple of weeks ago, and we thought maybe that was it for them. The Rams were just going to run away with the division.
Exactly, yeah.
And then they lose to the Jets, so it's really interesting how it's really a topsy-turvy affair. It's also interesting to note that Cam Akers has already been ruled out for that game. I know they have other personnel there, but he's been performing really well lately, so we'll see how that kind of impacts them.
Well, the Rams' opponent for next week are the Seahawks, who are at number 11 on our rankings after they scraped by Washington at 10 with the Browns, who bounced back nicely after their loss last week against the Ravens. They beat the Giants on Monday night, so they won their 10th game of the season, and they have not done it in quite a while, so they look to be playoff bound. At 9, the Colts. At 8, the Steelers drop all the way down after that loss. The Titans are at number 7. The Buccaneers are at 6 after they got a nice comeback win against the Falcons yet again for Tom Brady. At number 5, we have the Saints, who, in Drew Brees' return from injury, they came up just short against the Chiefs. How do we think Brees looked in his return?
He looked bad to start the game. He had a pretty bad fourth quarter, but he got used to it more and more. But keep in mind, he didn't have Michael Thomas, which is his best weapon easily. So Drew Brees' return, it's obviously a huge upgrade over Taysom Hill. And I think that's why the Saints moved up, because they look ready right now to go into the playoffs and be a true competitor at the top of the NFC.
Yeah, exactly. It was one of those, that I mentioned it last week, so this is a really matchup that's been, for me, it's been really like, I've been waiting for this. And so I can see it happening again in the Super Bowl potentially. I reckon Chiefs definitely the best team, and the Saints are really building to be a playoff ready team. So look forward to seeing this hopefully in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, to your point, Million, I think that's why we all picked the Saints in that game of the week last week, because no matter who was going to start, it was always going to be in the Chiefs' favour, because obviously Drew Brees coming back needs a little bit of time to readjust, and obviously Taysom Hill is not the ideal starter at quarterback. So, but you are right, Brees is definitely an upgrade, and I think after this little, time back now from injury against the Chiefs, he will be more prepared going into next week and into the playoffs. At number 4, with the Ravens, the Packers are at 3, the Bills are at 2, and the Chiefs remain at 1. They are our power rankings going into week 16 of the NFL season. On to our next segment today, is Anthony's Q&A. The first question, Anthony, is, are the Jets still the worst team in the league?
Yeah, I think so. Even though we had our power rankings having the Jets at 31 and the Jags at 32, I still think the Jets are the worst team in the NFL quite clearly. I just think...
Quite clearly.
Yeah, I think you just got to factor in the future that the Jets are expected to have. I don't see them to be very good or competitive for at least a couple more years. Where the Jaguars, they drafted their quarterback. I know it's quite a while away now. Back in 2010, they had that obviously good playoff run. I still think they have pieces there that could mould, but the Jets' locker room culture looks horrible with the coaching situation that they've had all season long. So I think just factoring that in, the Jets look like the worst team here at the moment and into the future.
You still think they're the worst team, even though the Jacksonville Jaguars haven't won since week 1?
Yeah, I still think they're the worst team, yeah.
Okay.
Alrighty. Second and last question for you, Anthony. What does the future look like in Minnesota?
I think obviously going into this season, it was the defense was the biggest question mark, because the offense has been on the field as much as they would have liked, just because the defense has been getting slaughtered most of the season. It's got a bit better as it's gone on. So for the future for Minnesota, I think it's just really getting that defensive personnel in through the draft and through the trade, to build up that kind of form and chemistry. Starts with the defensive line. Rookie cornerbacks are an issue. It's all the defense. The offense has proved this year they're functional. They're not a bad offense at all. And they got pieces there like Justin Jefferson that's going to get better next year. So it's all the defense for Minnesota. And with the draft, they should be able to come out with some good personnel into this draft.
You don't think that quarterback and the offensive line is as big an issue?
I think just based off where the offense is and where the defense is a bigger issue at the moment. That's more, I think it's arguably more of a concern at the moment, just because the offense has shown pretty good signs so far this season.
It's a very young defense.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not giving them. You don't want to give them any time to kind of develop before you make a proper judgment.
Yeah, obviously, like the best teams in the NFL make trades constantly. You've seen the Chiefs do it. So I'm not saying get rid of them after one season because they haven't performed their rookie season. I'm saying that you just judge where everyone's at. You look at the available options. And if there is a better option to make an upgrade for one, on a position in defense, like the rookie cornerbacks, then you will make that choice if it's an option. So I think they'll go into the preseason 2021. They have plenty of options. So defense is just a priority at the moment.
So if you look at one position of need, the top position of need right now for the Vikings,
I think cornerback. Cornerback's been a position that, especially at the start of the season, they got absolutely destroyed for 4 weeks in a row. So they'll need that if they want to make playoffs in the future and make a deep playoff run.
That's Anthony's Q&A for week 16. On to the next segment on today's episode is multi-madness, and our first leg today is the Saints to beat the Vikings in New Orleans. And with the way the Vikings defense has been playing, I think it's a good opportunity for Drew Brees to come in and really kind of get his mojo back as he probably returns from injury.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's pretty safe considering this isn't the playoffs.
Our second leg is the Dolphins to beat the Raiders, and again, the Raiders have been very disappointing. We've discussed it, and even though Tua has been playing super well for the Dolphins, I feel like their defense will be able to shut down the Raiders, and I feel like it could be a game where Tua could find some form against a defense that we've talked about that has been pretty easy to be scored against, especially in the passing game. Browns to beat the Jets is our third leg, and you never know, with the Jets coming off a win, they could go back to back, but with how the Browns have been playing, I think this is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah, I agree. And now they have quite a bit to play for as well, the division on the line. If they get the job done this week, they go into the Steelers game with a lot of confidence.
Our second last leg is the Packers to beat the Titans. It's probably our most 50-50 one of this leg of this week, but the Packers at home have been fairly unstoppable, and even the Titans are in pretty good form. I feel like the Packers should be able to get the job done at home, especially since they've still got much to play for in terms of clinching the first seed in the NFC.
Yeah, the only thing the Packers have to worry about is just being able to limit Derrick Henry.
They have had trouble against the run, so that will be something to watch, but hopefully for our sake, the Packers are able to overcome it. Our final leg on this week's multi is the Bills to beat the Patriots, and it's quite fitting as the Bills have got their first AFC East title in many years, and they've got a chance now to just rub it in with, hopeful for their sake, hopefully winning against the Patriots, and it should be relatively straightforward for them with how the Patriots have been playing, especially the quarterback position. So, yeah. That's our multi going through this week. We lost last week, but hopefully we'll make it 2 in 3 weeks if we can get this one done. On to our next segment and Emilian's team to watch.
Alrighty, thanks, Jack. Alright, my team to watch this week, it is the Pittsburgh Steelers. I know that we've been talking about them quite a bit, but this week they face the Colts. This is a crucial game because if they win this game, I believe they win the division. They secure it because they do have 2 games on the Browns, I think. Oh, sorry, no, they have 1 game on the Browns, but having 2 games on them will definitely help them in terms of their tiebreaker against the Browns, even if they lose in week 17. So they take on the Colts, who have a very formidable defense, and we know that the Steelers' offense has been struggling. Ben Roethlisberger is passing it way too much. They need to find their running game because Ben Roethlisberger is not what he used to be, and when he throws for over 40 passes a game, he is severely holding back that offense. And the receivers also have to step up. Juju Smith-Schuster, he hasn't been playing too well lately. Chase Claypool needs to bounce back and find his form that he had in the middle of the season. So the Steelers, I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond after losing 3 straight against the Colts.
Tell me, Emilian, do you think this last 3-week period for Ben, or Big Ben, has been the worst of his career?
I mean, I've been following Ben since the early stages of his career, but at this stage, when you compare him to other quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Drew Brees and Philip Rivers, who are all the same age about, I'd say these last 3 weeks are similar to what Philip Rivers was doing last year, and it's not good enough. I think that if Ben Roethlisberger really wants to establish himself as one of those elite quarterbacks people think of in history, he's got to get to Brees and Brady's level where they play consistently well at this age.
Well, at least in my time following the league, I cannot think of a worse 3-year period for him as a quarterback, just the way he's been playing these last few weeks. Obviously, he's come up against some decent defenses, but I feel like his play has been generally very poor this last month.
Yep.
On to TD's game of the week, and it is the Green Bay Packers versus the Tennessee Titans. As usual, we have our 4 facets of the game that we're going to run through, and Emilian is going to kick it off with better offense.
Yes, thanks, Jack. So for the better offense this week, it's really tough because I think both offenses are quite capable. They're quite high-powered. Obviously, got Derrick Henry on the Titans, but I just cannot go past the Packers right now because Aaron Rodgers is the MVP of the league. I believe he is the front runner. Devontae Adams is one of the best receivers in the league, and those 2 are connecting on another level right now. And of course, you still got Aaron Jones there. I think this offense is going to be really hard to stop, especially if they get in front. If they take an early lead on the Titans, it's going to be really hard for the Titans to come back. because they will rely on Derrick Henry running the ball, and that is always a better solution when you're ahead.
Alright, so I got the defense this week, and I'm going to go with the Packers defense. I think neither defense is really formidable, and that's not really their strength, but I'm going to go with the Packers because they've been limiting the scoring of a couple of teams they've faced recently. I mean, they limited the Panthers to 16 points last week. They have some really nice pieces. Zadarius Smith is having another excellent season. You know, you got Jair Alexander there. Some really nice pieces that I think the main thing, like as you mentioned before, is they're going to have a tough time stopping Derrick Henry, but in all other facets, I think that they have the better defense for sure.
I'm on coaching, and I really like these two coaching staffs quite a lot. They've both had a lot of success these last couple of seasons. I think Mike Vrabel is a really good head coach. You can just tell that the players really like him. He's a really players coach. He's obviously been with Bill Belichick in the past. He's got really good pedigree. He's just a really smart coach, high IQ. But I really like Matt LaFleur and that coaching staff as well. Penn, the defensive coordinator. I just think, just because of this matchup, I'm going to lean towards the Packers, just because Matt LaFleur, obviously coming from Tennessee, he knows the ins and outs of the Titans and how Vrabel operates. So I think he's got a bit of a head up in this matchup, I think, as a coach, and he's had a lot of success these first two seasons. I think over the first season, the best record apart from Lombardi as Packers coach. So he's definitely up there, and so I'm going to go with the Packers here.
I also have momentum this week, and this one's really tough. Both teams have been finding their form, but can't really go past the Packers here. I mean, they've won 4 straight. They've stormed into the number 1 seed, like positioning for the NFC. They've clearly got more momentum. Titans have been scoring a lot, but I just don't see in the regular season anyone really stopping the Packers right now. I'm not sure about come playoff time, but they definitely have quite a bit of momentum going into the playoffs.
Predictions?
I think this one's going to be quite high scoring. I'm going to go 35-30 for Green Bay.
I'm going to have a bit of an upset here. I'm going to go 31-28 Titans.
I'll go 27-20 for the Packers. On to our final segment, and is my real or overreaction.
Alrighty, Jack, we have 4 statements for you today. The first one, we will see a Chiefs vs Saints rematch in Super Bowl 55.
It's an overreaction. While I do think the Chiefs will be present at this year's Super Bowl, I do feel like it will not be the Saints who they're playing against. The Saints in the playoffs, as we know, these last few seasons have not been overly trustworthy, and with Drew Brees aging and coming off his injury, there's a lot of question marks. Obviously, Michael Thomas' injury is still a huge unknown. I don't think it's going to be them who the Chiefs are playing. I think it's more likely we see a team like Tampa Bay or Green Bay. Hopefully it's not Green Bay, as a base fan, but I think, because I predicted the Buccaneers and Chiefs, so I think Tom Brady, they got things back under control a little bit in Tampa Bay this week against the Falcons with their win, so I feel like I'm still going to go with that Bucks Chiefs Super Bowl.
Alright, so Jack, my first statement is the Steelers will lose in the wildcard round.
It's tough. I'm going to go with overreaction though. As disappointing as the Steelers have been these last 3 weeks, I still believe in them as a team. I still think Mike Tomlin is a top 5 head coach in the league. He's a great locker room coach as well, so I feel like he's going to be able to kind of get his guys back in shape as they head towards the playoffs. I really wouldn't be surprised if they pull off a win against the Colts this weekend. I think a lot of things have to change though, and I think a really key one is inside the locker room. I think Juju Smith-Schuster's whole TikTok kind of routines. I just think it stinks of complacency, and I think it doesn't put the team in the right mindset going into games. I feel like they need to be more locked in, and not go into every game expecting to win. You know, they've got to go in thinking that they're the underdog, because you know that they're the best kind of team mentalities, and because I don't think it's talent. They have so much talent on defense and offense, so I think that's going to come. They've just got to get in better form as a team, and it starts inside the locker room for me.
Alrighty. Next statement for you, Jack. The Seahawks defense is currently better than their offense.
Overreaction. I love Russell Wilson, and no matter how poorly or average he's playing at any given time, I'm still gonna go and I'm still gonna ride with him. He was my quarterback. If he was my quarterback, I'm gonna ride with him. So, as decent as the Seahawks defense has been, for the most part, it's been not that great. So, even though we're talking about right now, I still feel like the Seahawks offense, with the weapons they've got and with Wilson, can get it done at any given time.
Alright, last statement for the episode. Alex Smith should be the comeback player of the year.
This is probably the easiest question or statement in this entire series, Arif, and I think that's real. I cannot think of anyone else apart from maybe Olden Smith to be comeback player of the year, but I think the feel good story of Alex Smith this season is really just impossible to go past for this award. Because it's not just the fact that he's come back and played, but it's the fact that he's come back and played well and led his team to a point where they can compete for a playoff spot against all odds. So I think there's just too many good things within this story to go past him as the 2020 comeback player of the year. That's my segment done, and episode 30 of the TDU podcast is also done. Thank you guys for listening. If you did enjoy it, please head over to our Instagram if you haven't already. You can go follow us. We're at TouchDownUnder. We post all of our podcast and non-podcast content there, including Riff's Rising Rookies, which is just getting more popular by the week. We're also on Twitter at the TDU Podcast, and we upload our podcasts to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube at TouchDownUnder. Once again, thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next week.